Okay, so hello everyone. David Dubélé and I, Jennifer Hayes, are a married couple that work for National Geographic as underwater photographers. We are together 24/7 above and below the water, so it helps when you love your partner, like your partner, but it's even better if you have a sense of humor. And we are really, really, really happy to be here today for Optic and Lindblad, whom we love, and B&H.
You know that every image, every picture, every click of the shutter is a collaboration. And a collaboration begins not just pushing the shutter, but it begins with the camera. And that camera comes from B&H. Over all these years, B&H has helped us and supplied us, and we've worked with them. And it's not just the camera, but it's the journey. And the journey, of course, is Lindblad. A Lindblad trip for us, even though we work all over the world, a Lindblad trip for us is a magic carpet.
It really is about you. It's about Lindblad, and it's about the guests. It's a collaboration. It really is. The Lindblad crew and staff are like family, and the guests make it all happen. They think they're guests. They really are collaborators that get everybody to the far corners of the world.
Especially in this great portion of the globe, the Pacific, that we dream about.
So we're going to take you through the Pacific. Everywhere we show you, we have been with Lindblad. And I'm hoping some of you watching have traveled with us. I'm hoping some of you watching will travel with us. We have friends that we've met out there on expeditions that come to our house. We've got somebody joining us next week. But in the meantime, let's get started on the Pacific. Let's go. Let's go.
All right. Well, let's begin at the beginning. This is Great Detached Reef, part of the Northern Great Barrier Reef, the world's reef, 1,500 miles offshore of the Queensland coast. It's an extraordinary place. I've been working there for almost 4 decades. It is an unbelievably beautiful place, a nation offshore. And as the waves roll, it reveals incredible coral. Sleeping parrotfish with a smile. I sent this picture to my dentist.
He loved it, by the way.
Yeah.
But we didn't get a reduced bill.
No.
We could have gotten a reduced bill.
There are some magical places there. This is a place called Rain Island, this little drop in the ocean, little drop of sand surrounded by a footprint of reef. 1,500 feet when I flew over it, we looked down and we saw something that looked like algae spinning off the end of it. It wasn't algae, it was turtles. In October, November of the year, as many as 80,000 turtles gather off the shore of Rain Island. They wait until nightfall to go in to lay their eggs, and they mate there too. It's an extraordinary thing. And what it looks like underwater, well, it looks like clouds of turtles. These are green turtles. It is one of the most intense places of life on our planet. Sharks, in this case a silver-tip shark, one of the most elegant of all sharks, are an indication of a healthy reef system. And here's a beautiful reef system. This is Opal Reef, one of the reefs that you can easily access from shore from Port Douglas or from Lindblad, a snorkel for all the world to see. A picture taken in 2009.
One of the great things about the Great Barrier Reef, and especially Opal Reef, is that most of the people that go snorkel here, which is incredible, because that means you can or do not have to be a diver. So David has this huge archive of many decades on the reef. This is 2009, and we can't talk about the Great Barrier Reef without talking about a little bit of the problems it's experienced with climate change. So we went back. This is 2009. We went back in 2018 after back-to-back bleaching on the coral reef to document it. This is the same exact location. David is holding the 2009 picture. You can see it. It's robust. It's healthy. It's flourishing. And there is the reef behind it now, struggling. And that tells us, what this tells us is that climate change is having an impact on the reef. We are influencing the reef. But guess what? There is hope. And here's what hope looks like. Hope looks like research. These are scientists that are restoring the reef and learning how climate effects are changing the reef and how they can keep up with the change. There's resilience. There may be damaged parts of the Great Barrier Reef, but there's also pockets and acres of surviving supercorals that are resilient. And guess what those resilient reefs do? They survive to reproduce. So there's research, there's resilience, and there's reproduction. This is a magic night. David, this was one of your favorite nights in 2018.
On the hottest day ever recorded off Queensland, the Moore Reef spawned. Corals spawn. These hard corals spawn simultaneously. It's one of the greatest acts of reproduction on the planet. And it looks like an upside down snowfall. Every dot you see is an egg and sperm bundle rising to the surface to eventually reproduce.
This is a picture of hope and health. And we all need to keep going to the Great Barrier Reef and documenting and experiencing it. The click of the shutter is the end point of someone getting you there. Think about it. You don't get there by yourself. Where are we going next, David?
I'd like to tell you a story. Long time ago in Papua New Guinea, I swam into a school of chevron barracuda. And chevron barracuda do this wonderful thing. They begin a perfect circle. It's a defensive mechanism. And I realized that in the center of this perfect circle, I was in the middle of my own picture. I went back to the dive boat, got the captain of the dive boat, a woman named Diane Halstead, and we came back to the same place. And believe it or not, the barracuda began to circle. And I made this picture. Papua New Guinea is a magical, unbelievable place. We didn't know then that Papua New Guinea was the eastern wing of what is now known as the Coral Triangle, the epicenter of marine biodiversity on our planet, the heart of our planet's coral empire. And one of the places, one of the crown jewels in this heart of the Coral Triangle is a place called Kimby Bay. Look at this place. Deep water, volcanoes, and on the edge of the land, and the history of the Second World War rolling along the north coast of New Britain Island. A B-25, forced landing in 1943, still there. And a Zero aircraft. Strangely enough, with all the incredible aerial battles during the Second World War in the Pacific, there are very, very few airplane wrecks. Airplanes will land in the sea, they'll crush as they go into the sea, they'll turn over, they'll fall into deeper water, and very few of them land upright and perfect. This Zero looks like it's flying through blue gloom 87 years ago.
So Kimby Bay is full of surprises, and it's full of seamounts. It's a deep basin with seamounts that rise towards the surface like skyscrapers, and each of those seamounts has a different personality. And this is Kimby Balmy, and it's like a Martha Stewart reef that's got everything from crinoids to barracuda to hard corals, soft corals, whip corals. It's got everything. And one of our favorite seamounts, and you'll see why, is this. It's called Bradford Shoals.
There's a seamount called Bradford Shoals, one of the most spectacular dives in the world. It's a beautiful place, a carousel of life. It's things that you don't see in the sea. When fish move in a circular pattern, they create the rarest thing in the sea, which is a geometric pattern. a place that has no corners and no edges and no geometry whatsoever. Geometry in a place of weightless chaos.
So this is Bradford Shoals. It's a shoal with its own school of barracuda that in the morning are very deep and circling the seamount. And then in the late afternoon, they form these 90-foot towers, literally almost 100 feet tall. And then in the evening, they break off to go and hunt the reef. And it's like clockwork every day. And in Kimby Bay, it's a place of discovery. Like Papua New Guinea is still raw, real, remote, and it's much of it is really still being described. This is Joelle's seamount. This was a newly discovered. How often do you get to dive a new seamount? These are red Pinjalo snappers on Joelle's. They had never seen a diver before. They were following David across the seamount. There was David going by me, followed by these obsessed Pinjalo snappers. And it isn't just about the fish life who don't know people there and who greet you with a hello, who are you?
Hold out your hand. Divide your pinky nail into quarters. And that's the size of this tiny creature. It is a pygmy seahorse. It lives its life on this sea fan. Joelle's Reef is a place of anemones. It's one of the great friendships in the ocean, the partnership between the clownfish and the anemone. Here, a pair of clownfish are spawning. You can see the red eggs. In the evening, the clownfish burrow in the anemone's stomach. Susan's Reef, an extraordinary reef, is covered with red sea-whipped corals. Swimming back to the boat in the evening, we found a pair of squids hunting just beneath the surface.
In Kimby Bay, we weren't certain we would see sharks because sharks have been fished out through much of the Coral Triangle, but we did. And sharks are an incredible symbol, not to be scared of, but to be celebrated. When we saw them, we knew that we were swimming in a healthy ecosystem. So they were a really, really welcome surprise.
We met a turtle. This is a hawksbill turtle. Now, normally, when a photographer meets a turtle and the turtle meets the photographer, the turtle wants to leave. You take a picture or so, the turtle will leave, take a breath, go up to the surface, and he's gone down the reef, or she's gone down the reef. This turtle, it was a she, for some reason, followed me all over the place. I don't know why.
I know why. I know this turtle was obsessed with David. David would go by like the red Pinjalo snappers. The turtle would follow him. She would follow him this way, that way. You know why? Turtles have, here's my theory. Turtles have this incredible beak, especially hawksbill. They have this incredible, David turned sideways. I think she had a crush on David because they both had incredible beaks.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
It was so good that we managed to do a picture I've always wanted to do. We used an outside light source, a secondary light source attached to the camera. And that way we could side light and rim light the turtle and make a portrait. This is a portrait I've always wanted to make of a hawksbill turtle. Now, one of the things, the holy grail of taking pictures anywhere is to try and make a picture that tells the tale of where you are, that basically encapsulates your whole experience. And as photographers, we look all over the place to try and find this. It's the first basically self-assignment you do when you're looking at a new place. We couldn't. And in the last 2 days, we finally found a place in Kimby Bay that told us everything. There's one little island that it has in one corner of it a field in very, very shallow water. In less than a foot, there is a field of purple lace coral intermingled with a cropper coral and staghorn coral. That's absolutely beautiful. And we worked there and photographed the picture half in, half out of the water. One of the things I particularly like to do. And as we were working, father and son came up in the dugout. They were fishing there and gave them lunch later on.
Like the chicken. You see Anton and his papa again.
those lovely days where everything worked out. We made another dive and went home. Boiling clouds, complicated skies of Walindi, and this tiny little islet. It's the kind of pictures I really like to make. And here's the image.
Okay, now we are going to take you to Palau, a small group of islands with a very big conservation footprint. And David and I are going to stop talking for a little bit and just take you underwater in Palau. Come with us and look at this magical place on the forefront of ocean conservation. So, Palau is a very special place. And this 10-year-old little girl is literally next generation Palau and next generation ocean. That tiny country is doing much to preserve its ocean heritage for generations to come. David, where are we going next?
We're going to the South Pacific, to the Tuamotu Archipelago, part of French Polynesia, part of Tahiti. And specifically, we're going to a place called Fakarava, a very, very large atoll with 2 passes in it. Twice a day, all the water from this immense atoll empties out of the South Pass. It is an extraordinary place.
Fakarava is a UNESCO biosphere. It's incredible. The shallows filled with coral, the shallows filled with black-tip sharks and a sloping reef that heads down to canyons below. On your way down, you swim through schools of fish, and you're headed down to a slope, and you have a destination in mind. And the destination is this. In the bottom of the South Pass are different populations of gray reef sharks. It is one of the most exquisite dives on the planet. And I'm going to say this about Fakarava. We were with Lindblad. We visited Fakarava. Then we got to our place where we were going to get on our plane and go home and back to New York, back to the studio. We didn't go home. We turned right around. We stayed in French Polynesia. We went right back to Fakarava. And here's why. Take a look. Thank you, Lindblad, for introducing us to Fakarava.
There are pictures that you dream of, pictures that I thought I could never make. And one of these pictures was one of these spectacular Polynesian sunsets in the open Pacific, and sharks and coral.
Magical, a place that has now become one of our favorite places to dive on the planet. And we have Lindblad to thank. Now we're going to take you to one of our favorite places on the planet called Raja Ampat, the beating heart of the Coral Triangle.
From space, Raja Ampat is the most complex and complicated geography on our planet. And as far as the sea goes, it is habitat upon habitat, which means it's richness upon richness, layer of life upon layer of life. This is the very heart, the beating heart of biodiversity and life on our planet, our ocean planet, Raja Ampat.
Raja Ampat is about rainforests and reefs. Look at this. This is 3 feet deep. Look at the incredible carpet of coral and towers of rainforests. It's indescribable. It's magic.
There are passages, secret channels, the bottom covered with leather corals and hard corals leading up to the rainforests.
It's an emerald lagoon, a mangrove, a secret mangrove that's stretched for half a mile. It's just impossible to describe. And it's a place that we look forward to going back to and just learning more about and documenting and hopefully taking you.
We found a place, a lagoon, that in the evening was full of moon jellyfish, Aurelia, beating quietly, silently. And as we photographed, just at sunset, a man in a canoe, fisherman, came by.
This is Point Cree, a place of absolute chaos. And without asking, I'm going to say this is one of David's favorite places on the planet to dive.
Again, these layers of life interacting with each other, movement and time and change and color. Jackson Pollock painting come to life. This is the most beautiful place that I can think of in our world's reef systems.
We have spent a total probably of 3 years exploring Raja Ampat, and we haven't even touched the surface here. It's just a remarkable, incredible wilderness that we look forward to every single time we go, because every dive, you would say, is a discovery. Every single one.
Every single dive. On a rainy day, a diving day that wasn't particularly productive, I found a little tiny rock with fishermen. We jumped in the water, and it was a carousel of silver baitfish swimming around and around this rock. When I put my camera up to look at them, the sky cleared, the sun came out. Everything in back of you, all those islands, all the water, much of it is unknown. Raja Ampat. Thank you for being part of all of this. You think you are guests, you are explorers. And you are.
They are. They are.
And literally every ship, every time a ship goes out, every voyage a ship goes out, there's something new, something different, something that people haven't seen before, something that even the most jaded people like, for instance, I have spent now 50 years at National Geographic this year. I have spent so much time in the Pacific. And every time we go out, there's something new. And on a Lindblad ship, that's what happens. You see something new. Mm-hmm. And people say, well, I want to bring back the memories of photography. No, you bring back an image. It's part of you, part of the time you're on the ship, part of the time you remember things. All of these things are what a photograph is made of. They're complex, extraordinary things. And in a world where every single man, woman, and child now has a camera, a really good camera is a way of expressing not only a time and a place, but a time and a place and part of you. That's what Lindblad, that's what photography is all about.
They've given us a gift. Lindblad has introduced us to parts of the world that we have found so extraordinary, we have gone back to, and sometimes without even returning home. So thank you to the Lindblad Glass. Thank you to B&H for the equipment and the motivation and the inspiration. It's a collaboration. And
B&H,
that's what works.
B&H for me is a palace of photographic dreams.
This is true. This is very true. And I have to watch you on that.
Watch me.
Yeah,
watch the credit card.
Watch your wallet. So we have an upcoming trip with Lindblad that David and I are excited about. Going back to Papua New Guinea, going back across the Pacific to Papua, Raja Ampat, in this very special place that we visited with Lindblad called the Banda Islands. And we're going to leave you with this incredible moment in the sea where we got out of the water and we're silent because of what we had just seen. And we really look forward, after a year out of the water with COVID, to seeing this again. We thank you all for joining us. We hope to see those that we've seen again, and we hope to meet new friends. And thank you, B&H, and thank you, Lindblad. Thank you for the extraordinary journey. Here is Banda Nera.